Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to APS Amplifier. Paul here. So today we're going to be taking a bit of a Yu-Gi-Oh deep dive. This is going to be a much longer video than usual, probably at least. Yeah, we're going to be talking about the Yu-Gi-Oh community, the different sort of aspects of it, how players sort of interact and engage with and view each other, and also, how Konami maybe plays into that, some mistakes I think that they've maybe made with like Yu-Gi-Oh's like aiming and framing, what we can learn from this stuff. We're gonna take some detours with like Magic the Gathering and some of its designers, and yeah, just talk about a lot. So just strap in, it should be fun. Okay, so we're gonna start with this person named Mark Rosewater. You might have heard of him. He is the head designer for Magic the Gathering. It's a position that he has held since 2003. Very impressive. It must be pretty difficult, but yeah, so being the head designer for Magic seems like a pretty tough job, but the reason why I'm bringing him up is because I think he has some very, very poignant quotes and just information about Magic the Gathering that will be great guides and sort of foundations for our discussion. So I'm going to show them all real quick, and then we might come back to a few of them. But the big thing, first of all, first and foremost, is this three types of sort of psychographic profiles for players. There's basically three archetypes that he splits players into for Magic the Gathering. And don't worry, it'll relate to Yu-Gi-Oh! So, basically, he says that there's three types. There's the Timmy, who's characterized by their tendency to, here, I'll zoom in on this so you guys can read along. Yeah, Timmy is characterized by their tendency to use big creatures and cast big spells. Large, exciting plays motivate them. They're most associated with playing for fun. They play huge creatures. They play fantastic spells. They like mythical enchantments. They're the most social archetype. They enjoy the interaction that Magic provides. So a stereotypical Timmy player, or a Tammy, is usually a younger player with a simple but fun for them sort of deck. They don't necessarily care if they win or lose. They just want to have fun playing really big effects. They want to experience something. And there's some subgroups, right? So there's like power gamers, there's social gamers, there's diversity gamers, and there's adrenaline junkies, or adrenaline gamers. I call them adrenaline junkies. Next is the Johnny. So the Johnny or the Jenny is characterized by their tendency to build complex and creative decks. They're most commonly known as a combo player, at least in Magic, and they sometimes choose for elaborate but inefficient win conditions. They like to find interesting combinations of cards that they can use to win the game or give them an advantage. Johnny may be a player who seeks niche cards or cards that are widely reputed as bad and tries to break them and exploit them in a way to give them abnormal power and win the game. They're happiest when their decks work and they win their way. For them, one in many leaves them happy, even if that win, as long as that win is on their own terms. There are also some subgroups of Johnnies. So there's like combo players who are fascinated by the interactions between cards, offbeat designers who are driven by ideas, deck artists who use deck building as a form of self-expression, and the Uber Johnny who thrives on doing the undoable. He proves that what conventional wisdom says can't be done, can be done. To him, no card is too bad to find a use for. All right, and then the third and final player archetype is Spike. A Spike is characterized by their competitive nature and they play primarily to prove how good they are. Spike will find the best deck in the format even if it requires copying another innovator's work. See net decking. Spike's cards are effective, designed to secure a fast and effective victory over opponents. If Spike plays several games and loses only one, but feels they should have won it, then they still might be malcontent. So yeah, as a competitive player, there are some subgroups. There's the innovator who prides themselves on their ability to judge new cards, the tuners who try to dominate by fine-tuning the known decks. They're known as min-maxers, analysts who plan on winning not by having the best deck in a vacuum, but by having the deck best suited for a particular environment, and then the nuts and bolts who focus their energies in perfecting their own gameplay. They try to understand their own internal flaws and work to improve them. So all three of these sort of archetypes, I think, can sort of be applied to Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Yu-Gi-Oh has very casual players who I guess you would call the Timmies. These are probably the people who, are maybe bigger anime fanatics, especially these sort of Duel Monsters GX era anime fanatics. They like their Blue Eyes, they like their Dark Magician, they, like their hero decks, they like kind of character themed decks, and they might also be more of like an old head, you might call them that, like a Yugi boomer. The people who, I guess, want the game to sort of play as it did on the playground for them, or however it felt like in 2002, 2003. Normal summons, sets, not a lot of hyper fast interaction, and they want their games to be slow and steady. And this is also the type of person who might sort of feel disenfranchised a bit by the way that Yu-Gi-Oh works. Now, we'll get into that in a second. So I think the middle ground, the Johnny, or what is this? He calls it the Johnny or the Ginny. It's sort of like the middle of the road type. I actually think that this is where the vast majority of Yu-Gi-Oh players online kind of fit into, where it's like, they're trying to win, but they're trying to win on their own terms. This is the person who's not necessarily playing like Kashtira right now or Branded right now or, like Runic or something. But instead, they're maybe playing just a deck that they enjoy, but trying to do the best that it can in order to like contend with the meta decks. They're definitely aware of the metagame, I would say, but their goal isn't to like succumb to it, but rather to just like play around it and see the best that they can do. And I think these are the type of people that kind of watch the most like YouTube. They're in the most groups. They're sort of the enthusiast. They're the middle of the road, I think, in terms of competition. But like, yeah. And then finally, you have the Spike, who's the competitive type. And I think that this translates pretty one-to-one between Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic and many other games. These are the players who are entering the regionals. They're entering the YCS events. They're studying, studying, studying. They want to win. Their goal is to win. They don't enter tournaments with the objective of losing. And on that note, they want to make the most efficient plays. They want to play the best decks. And it doesn't matter if they're net decking. Their goal is simply to win. So I think all three of these types of play are totally valid. I've expressed this view before and I still have it. I think that there's nothing wrong with playing for fun. There's nothing wrong with playing kind of just for like your personal satisfaction and like innovation and things like that. There's nothing wrong with just playing to win. The reason why I bring all of this up though is because I was recently involved in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel First Anniversary Invitational. So a quick rundown of how this event worked. There were 10 invited players. It was, as you can see, me and then these other 10, and we were split into two teams, the Team Imperm column and Team Guaranteed UR. Very fun names. So it was Dadadoya, Dzif, Trishlo TTV, Sekuno, and PRRJ, or Paulo Goncalves, against Shiggy's, yours truly, Tombox, Foosley, or Leslie, and Pack. Spoiler, Team Guaranteed UR, my team, we ended up winning. We kind of got carried by Pack in the end. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this event was because while it was a lot of fun, and I think it was pretty well done, I mean, give or take some small things, Konami will probably change if they do it again. The biggest thing I noticed was that because I was streaming it and paying attention to the chat, and also kind of went back and watched like other people's streams and stuff, because we were all supposed to stream the event on like our channels, I noticed that there was like a really huge divide between like what people wanted out of this event and just their reactions to what was going on in the event. So like there were all kinds of matches happening, right? This is part of mine. Spoiler: I played Labyrinth. DZ played Extra Sisters. He ended up winning 2-1, so I did manage to get some points for my team, but I had a pretty good time. The thing is though, this was like what I would consider to be like a pretty decent match, but the first match was Dadadoya playing against Shiggy's, and he used a coin flip deck. Now this is kind of a meme pick and something that he uses a lot in videos like on his channel, but she was playing Mathmex and like, summoning IP Masquerena and all these Mathmech monsters and Access Code and kind of just destroyed him. It was a swift 3-0. Now, while I'm certainly happy about that, she was on my team, got us points. I think for the audience right off the bat, there was a bit of whiplash there, where it kind of, for a lot of people, shows them what they don't like about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! These crazy combo decks that just link a million times and make all these really powerful monsters and you can't respond to it and they destroy your whole field and they won't stop summoning. Their turn takes 10 minutes. These are just, you've probably heard this, right? And, here is, poor Dotto. He's just trying to have a little bit of fun. He's playing a gimmicky fun deck and just gets completely destroyed. Now, I think that you can take either side here, but I don't think that anyone did anything wrong here either. Like, Shiggy's knew that this is an invitational where winning gets your team points and the objective is to win, and that's kind of what they told us. It's like, the winning team gets some prizes. We all got a little bit for playing, but like the winning team gets like a trophy and these bomber jackets and stuff. I'll show you guys whenever that stuff arrives in the mail. But yeah, so she picked a strong, competent deck in Master Duel. I don't think there's anything wrong with the deck that she picked. I also don't think there's anything wrong with the deck that Dotto picked, right? Like, he's playing a coin flip deck. He's kind of memeing. He's having a little bit of fun with his chat on the stream, and like, it's fine. Now, was it a mismatch? Yes. I think that maybe falls a bit maybe more on Konami to have communicated to us like, hey, you should all be playing like decks intended to win or all be playing maybe more casual ones. They had a ban list in place for this event, so it was like a special list where we couldn't use like most floodgates and super generic like busted extra deck cards, certain engines and things like that. So it was supposed to kind of be played for entertainment, but yeah. Now, I was in, so like the thing is, I was in chat, like I was reading my chat, and a lot of people, like off the rip, did not like this matchup. And throughout the event, I just saw like these differing takes on things. I know not everybody can be pleased, but there were like people who were sort of like, okay, why did they pick these people for this event? Why did they pick like, Sakuno and Fuslie? They don't even like play Yu-Gi-Oh, so to speak, and they don't know what they're doing and they suck. And like, she's just playing this Blue Eyes deck without an extra deck because yes, Fuslie did play a Blue Eyes deck and didn't. She forgot to submit her extra deck. It was kind of funny, but like also really tragic. Yeah, so there were people who were like, why they invite these people? Why they invite Dotto? Why they invite even like people were saying like I didn't play, I was playing Labyrinth and people were like, oh, like Paul didn't play Labyrinth well at all. His build was trash. He had no clue what he was doing. I could have done better. And yeah, so people were very upset about this. And I think that maybe people expected this event to be like a hyper competitive thing where it's just the best players playing the best decks as optimally as possible with the goal of nothing but winning. There's no entertainment value. It's all about just like win, win, win. And I can't blame those people for expecting that. I mean, the event's called like the Match Duel Invitational, but I also think that there are people who came into it and they hated everything that they saw because they hated when the people, because like Tombox played sprites, Pac played Sword Soul, PRRJ played sprites, and like Trishula TTV was playing Dragon Link, and of course like Shige's was playing Mathmex. These are all just these decks that can really like go to town, long combos, long turns. And while I enjoyed watching the matches for the most part, I didn't think there was anything wrong with it, especially in Pac's like final set of matches. He played around hand traps really masterfully. But there were people who were just like, these turns never end. I hate these decks. I'm tired of losing to, Sword Soul, and I lose to Sprite every time I play Master Duel. It's so annoying. And these are just what's ruining Yu-Gi-Oh! And then they're playing all these hand traps and no one can play and it's just terrible and they need to just blah, right? And so I kind of just found myself like walking away from it like, man, there's still so much work to be done with defining and understanding what it is that different people play this game for and people's ability to like respect it, because that I think is where it all kind of comes apart. So there's this really great quote actually by Mark Rosewater that I think describes or can be applied to this problem really easily. Let me see if I can find it. So yeah, he said, this is a tweet from 2020, but I'm sure this applies largely to Yu-Gi-Oh! He says, occasionally we do what's called a deep dive, where we do market research on the larger population and not through a site Magic players visit. This lets us hear from Magic players that we normally wouldn't and allows us to learn things about the quote-unquote average Magic player. One of the most important things that it teaches us is what most Magic players don't know. The average Magic player doesn't know what a Planeswalker is. Or he doesn't know that like Magic has a story, or who I, in this case like Mark Rosewater, is. And so he goes on to say like it's very easy to assume that everyone who plays is just like you, but a big life lesson I've learned as a game designer is that people are very different and the majority of the world is not like you. Sort of similar quote, he says that, for example, less than 10% of Magic players have ever played in a sanctioned tournament. And so I think that this is all like very poignant because it speaks to this problem where I think a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh players, I see this in the comments all the time, like they don't understand, like they see kind of meta decks being played and they feel like this game has been ruined. These are like the Yu-Gi boomers, I guess is what you'd call them. They want to go back to the playground days. But I think that there is something to be appreciated in modern Yu-Gi-Oh because like hand traps make the game really dynamic. Combo decks are a lot more dynamic and proactive, and different, a lot of different archetypes are well designed. Alec and I just earlier today were playing like Exorcisters versus Plunder Patrol, and then like last night we were playing Ninjas versus what was it? I was playing like Rika or something. And so like there's a lot of different decks. They work a lot of different ways. They're all very dynamic and it's all very fun. I think that what I would say to the hyper casual kind of maybe angry and seemingly disenfranchised player is that you learn a lot about Yu-Gi-Oh when you just start playing in the modern way instead of hating it. Right? Like if you go to a tournament, it might be a horrible experience where you get just destroyed by the top tier deck, but that's not going to be everybody that you face, and you can still learn something and you can still kind of try to adapt to it. What I would also say though, to the people who maybe watched this Master Duel Invitational and found themselves thinking like, okay, this should have been the tip-top Yu-Gi tubers or competitive players, and like they should have played everything perfectly. I could have played better than them. Why, wasn't it all like just perfect optimal play? It's okay for a Yu-Gi-Oh event to be kind of more for entertainment, more for show. Even if it's called a tournament, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be, like optimal plays and optimal people and optimal decks every single time. I think that that's something that I found like really comes up a lot with like the whole like backseat dueling, especially like in live streams and stuff. Every YouTuber I've talked to hates backseat dueling. They even if they don't say they hate it in public, trust me, in private they hate it. People don't like it when chat tells them, oh, here's what you could have done. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do this? Oh, you misplayed. You misplayed. And like I think that that kind of speaks to hyper competitive people or people who maybe think that they're hyper competitive. It's like nitpicking everything because their expectation is that Yu-Gi-Oh is supposed to only be played optimally, and there's no room for self-expression. There's no room for a unique play style. Plays are simply divided into this was the right thing to do, this is the wrong thing to do. Why didn't you notice this? Why didn't you see this? I've talked at length about why nitpicking plays and pointing out every misplay and every mistake or whatever you think is accidental cheating, whatever, is not necessarily like welcome. Like, sure, I mean, you can leave the comments and stuff, and people do, and it's sometimes helpful, but also it might just be that playing in front of the camera is like a lot of pressure, or that a person just thought, maybe they did see the thing that you saw, but they just chose to do a different play anyway, and it's fine that they can choose to like play their deck a different way than you. I think what it all comes down to for me, I guess, is like people need to sand down their self-righteousness. It goes for both sides. If you think like modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just ruined, all these hand traps, all these combo decks, everything is so terrible, it was better back when I was a kid. No, it probably wasn't. Like, you can still respect what modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Tries to do, and it's a different and more dynamic game. Even if you don't want to play it, there's no reason to attack it and accuse it and say that it's terrible. And if you're hyper competitive and you hate the idea of seeing someone play a deck that you like in my case, Labyrinth, or someone playing like really whatever deck it might be, Fuslie playing Blue Eyes or Sakuno playing like Heroes, and you think that like they're completely like messing it up and botching it, it's okay. Like they might just be playing more for fun. They might not be as serious about it, and it's fine to not be as serious. I think that's like what it all is the world is bigger than you, right? Like what Mark Rosewater says, it's basically comes down to it's easy to assume that everybody who plays is just like you. Everybody who plays is either here to win or only here to have fun. Like I think everybody should only play in these tournaments just to have fun and like play wild crazy decks and only play Blue Eyes and Dark Magician and stuff. No, like not everybody sees it that way. Some people want to play the best deck and they want to win. And also, not everybody is trying to play optimally and trying to play perfectly. And it's okay that like both can coexist. I feel like we just have so much more work that we still have left to do. And it's really unfortunate. Now, the next thing I'm going to get into is where I feel that Konami has kind of dropped the ball a little bit, or at least there's a specific behavior that they do. And I've alluded to this on social media if you follow me on like Twitter and Facebook and stuff, which you should do if you aren't already. Yeah, so I tweeted about this and I got a response that basically kind of led to the whole like Rosewater thing. But yeah, this is from Kayla. It's you don't have to really know. The point is, I was like talking about the Master Duel stream and the people, and then I see this quote, and it's Mark Rosewater, lead designer of Magic, once described the player base of TCGs into three main archetypes. There's the Timmy who plays for fun and just to see cool shit, Johnny who plays to experiment and express himself, which like I said is where I think most people kind of fall, and Spike who plays to win. And to sum it up in those terms, the problem with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is that it advertises itself by pandering almost exclusively to Timmy, but the actual card game is pretty much designed to tell him to go fuck himself. And I'm not gonna lie, I want to make a separate video about this because I think there's more to say about it. But just to wrap this video up with this last point, I do feel that sometimes Konami has a bit of an issue with like they use so much nostalgia pandering. Like they show Yugi and Kaiba and Dark Magician and Blue Eyes and Dark Magician Girl and all that stuff in a lot of the marketing, and they'll like do this sort of legacy support for old things. Like it's cool that they do it and I like it, but I do sometimes feel that it kind of is misleading because it attracts these people who have this nostalgia for Yu-Gi-Oh! And feel like, oh, I can get back into it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Still exists, it's fun. But then you play and what you're using is actually much newer archetypes you don't recognize, and they're a lot more competitive and a lot more extreme and a much higher octane game. And remember, to be clear, I'm not saying that modern Yu-Gi-Oh's high octane gameplay is a bad thing. I'm just saying that I think that when Konami sort of tells people, yeah, it's Yugi and Kaiba and like your favorite anime characters, it's duplicitous when that's what they kind of market and that's all the merch that they make, all the shirts and everything like that. Like my shirt that you can get on shopyugioh.com. Use the code TEAM15 for 15% off. Anyways, yeah, when they advertise all that, but then like you're kind of thrown into something that's entirely different. I think maybe in that way, Konami needs to do a better job of like fashioning this game for different types of people, exploring alternate formats, things like that to really kind of like smooth these, I don't know, smooth these issues. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted to just discuss this. I don't think that there's like necessarily an answer. I just remember seeing the chat and like the Master Duel stream that was yesterday, and like it just reminded me like, yeah, we've got a lot of ways to go. The big takeaway is just remember the way that you see the game is not the way that everybody sees the game, and it's okay to like play the game in different ways and expect different stuff. If you see somebody like misplaying with your favorite deck, it doesn't mean like that you have to just puke and just be, oh my god, it's so awful, it's terrible. Why are these people so bad? You're supposed to play it this way and play it perfectly. And also, if you see, you know, these new school meta players using all their combo decks and hand traps, that's also okay. Like you can find something to like in that too. So yeah, I think that's all the points I wanted to cover. I'll probably like break these topics down perhaps in more detail in separate vids. So be on the lookout for that. But yeah, what do you guys think? What do you feel like is the solution to this? Am I just foolishly optimistic for thinking that maybe, just maybe, we can still, you know, like find a. There goes a siren in the background. Am I foolishly optimistic? That's like a bad omen for what I'm talking about. But like, you know, am I optimistic for thinking that there can be a solution to this? That we can still, like, players can still learn to appreciate each other and respect each other, and remember that like many people play this game, they don't all play it the same way that you do. They don't all expect the same things that you do. What are your experiences with it? You know, have you had your mind changed? Have you been like, are you a competitive player who maybe you used to be kind of the mean, angry, just it must be optimal or die type, and maybe you had an experience or met people or saw things that changed your mind? Have you been the Yugi boomer who's just, you know, so certain that modern Yu-Gi-Oh is ruined, but actually maybe found out it's not? I don't know. All right, I think I've gone on long enough. This has been more of it's like a bit of a ramble. So yeah, it's gonna be it. Leave it down in the comments. Tell me what you think. And go to shopyugioh.com. Get yourself a Yu-Gi-Oh shirt that panders to old school players. You can use the code TEAM15, get 15% off, and at least you'll be happier that way or something. I don't know. All right, see you in the next one. Fast turn.